So with any of these questions, once again, notice how they've drawn it twice, but they're not in the same proportions. The first one looks a lot more squashed than the other one. The whole thing to realise is when you see a diagram in an exam or anything for maths, do not measure it unless it says to measure it, because it won't necessarily be accurate. In fact, at the start of most papers, it'll say diagrams will not be to scale. So you can't just measure them and hope that you're right.
I need a bomb. I don't know one.
Well, you need a haircut. Okay, so what's the first thing we're going to do with a triangle?
Party hard.
We're not going to party hard. We're going to label it.
Ask for tonight.
Come on, you got to label it. Hype. Hot. Excellent. It's really important. It seems like such a simple thing. But if you can label a triangle correctly, you're on your way to being able to do it right. Okay, having done that, you should be able to tell me which particular trigonometric ratio you're using. Opposite over adjacent?
10.
Tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. So we have now written down the formula. What do we do? Before substituting. Okay, so what's the opposite? What's the adjacent? Okay. Once again, just one of those steps that you should try and get in the habit of doing. These ones are relatively easy questions. When you get harder ones, really handy for you to write it down so that you've got it written down.
Sir,
yep.
just say.
Okay.
In like an exam,
Yeah.
you didn't know how to do it, but you wrote down like what you knew, and like just say you did that.
Got to that blue step.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you get a mark?
Depends how many marks it's out of. If it's out of one, no. But if you get to this next step, what do we do? Well, write down what you would put into a calculator. And this is the thing. If you can write down what you put into a calculator, then yeah, you get a mark. If you're at this point, I know you're on the right track. You've got the formula. You've been able to substitute in. You sort of know what you're doing. But I really need you to know that what you need, how you can find that. So if it was out of 2 marks, you might get half a mark. Because at least you've got to that point. Because generally in our marking criteria, it'll say something along the lines, for a question like this, if this was out of 2 marks, if it was just this label, if it just had that, you probably wouldn't be able, it'd be out of 1 mark. But if it had a question like that army one, the army has a flying fox that comes down from the top of a cliff and hits Dylan in the head because he's making noises. And it's coming down from the top of a cliff and it's going to be 6.5 kilometres, whatever. If it was one of those and you had to draw the diagram, then the marking scale would probably say you get 1 mark for drawing the diagram, 1 mark for doing the trig ratio correctly. So, depending on what they say the marks are. But at least at this point, if you've got all that stuff that we've got written down, I can say I'm confident that you know how to label a triangle for trigonometry, you know what the tangent ratio is, you know which one's the opposite, which one's the adjacent, and you know how to substitute it in. So honestly, the next bit is just knowing that you need to use the inverse of tan. So yeah, I'd probably, if it was out of 2 marks, I'd probably give you a mark for that. Because you've got to that point and you've done everything there correctly. So yeah, always worthwhile. So what do we do now? Well, you are dividing by 10, but instead of doing that whole thing that we did, because you don't need to do that, you just need to remember that what do we use. Instead of just putting 10 into the calculator, what are you going to put in? 10 minus 1. So we've got 10 minus 1, 4.3 over 6.5 equals theta. Kels, just to let you know, if you got to that point and then got the wrong answer, you'd probably get full marks.
I'm burning fat.
That shows me that you know exactly what to do.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that has told me you know exactly what to do. You basically told me what theta equals. Okay. You just can't put it into a calculator properly. So you'd be pretty much on the verge of getting full marks for that. Radio. Because that tells me you know exactly what you're doing.
Okay. What are you doing?
I'm burning fat. My heart rate's 115 at the moment, 116 at the moment.
Yep, and your brain rate is -3.
I got 33.
Right.
Go like this.
I've got
Someone get us another beer. Alright, what do we get? Chuck that in the calculator. 33 degrees?
I got 0.49.
You got more? You got 0.49? Does it say to the nearest degree?
Yes.
Okay. If it says to the nearest degree, round it down. Okay.
Headache.
Everyone happy for that? With that? All good? Oh, I don't know why I brought that up.